Today, we turn the tables and interviewer becomes interviewee, as I talk to Nina about her journey over the last 20 years as she conceived and shaped Cheeky Monkey Business Solutions into what it is today. No small business has easy beginnings, and you have to put in the hard work every day to make a success of it. So I want to begin at the beginning and ask you how this all started 20 years ago and what it was you set out to achieve.
Well, it all started more than 20 years ago. I was already working in change management. It was a new thing, and change management turned into project management, and the whole vehicle of change thing started. And I was fundamental in shaping that in the early organisations I was employed by. And I was just super curious, continually challenging, a complete pain in the arse, I'm sure, for my bosses. And in between, I just had this massive passion for travel. So I was really young. I still wanted to travel. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I loved work. I always knew that. I didn't love the construct of organisations. I didn't like to feel hemmed in. I didn't like what I thought at the time were like really stupid rules that didn't help anyone in the workplace. And I think everyone thought that the logical thing for me to do was to set up on my own. I could do amazing things. People saw that, but could I do it within the constraints of a work environment, an organisation? That was difficult. So I went away. I actually had become a board director at Amtrak Express Parcels, and I said, you know what, I'd done that for about 18 months, and I thought maybe this isn't for me either, even though I was so honoured to get that job. I was 30, I was female, it meant so much to me, and what I was doing meant so much, but also I just had these pangs to do something else, and I resigned and went travelling for the best part of 2 years. And while I was doing that, I ran the world trip. I was always thinking about what was coming next, and I thought that next would be something that I set up, something that I could mould myself, something that I wouldn't feel so constrained by. And when I got back with no money and nowhere to live, I experimented with a few things before someone introduced me to PZ Cousins. And they had quite a significant project for them. It was, PZ was so well known for its bar soap of imperial leather at the time. And they were looking to change that, fundamentally change that, move more into liquid soaps. And it meant setting up new factories overseas and Thailand and different places. And so I was introduced to them to do something, and I started working with them as a freelancer, really. And then the opportunity grew for both of us, and they were so supportive. And the ideas I had for Cheeky Monkey that were bubbling away, I had somewhere to express these ideas, and they were so well received. And it was just in a moment in time that was so amazing. So Cheeky Monkey was born, but not, in that roundabout way, not in I sat down with a pen and paper and went, oh, I'm setting up Cheeky Monkey.
So the timings were just perfect in terms of meeting up with PZ and them liking you liking them, and being able to work together. I suppose that was a big part of it.
Yeah, it was fate. I was desperate, actually. I was desperate. I needed to get work, and it was a recruiter who PZ were advertising for some kind of role, And I said, I've never done that role, but I think I've got the attributes to do that role. And this is an area that I think I'm going to like. And he said to me at the time, I don't think you're right for this role, but I do think you're right for PZ Cussons at this moment in time. And that introduction that he made was a massive help to me and a massive turning point. And then I met John Pantellereus and Mike at PZ, and they were amazing, amazing people, so different. And then they explained what they were trying to do, and it, like you say, it was spectacular timing, and also meeting people who were just so open to doing something differently.
Yeah, excellent. And of course, the big question that I'm sure people who haven't met you before, and then you introduce yourself and you tell them about your company, you've got to be asked a lot, where did the name come from? Because it certainly doesn't sound very corporate or business-like, and I'm sure even less so 20 years ago.
It really, yeah. Once I got started and saw this opportunity to actually set up a company, and I never thought Cheeky Monkey would be a business with staff. I say that a lot. But I did want to make a statement with it. And so I knew I wanted to do something different. This feeling of changing, disrupting the industry. Change, although still new back in the day, had been completely hijacked by the big consultancies, the big 4 or 5 consultancies that were all merging themselves. And I just knew I wanted to disrupt that market. There are many stories that I tell about how the name came about. And, to be quite honest, as I do with all things, I kept mentioning things and seeing how people reacted to it. And then, in a roundabout way, Cheeky Monkey sort of stuck. Everyone already knew me as being very smiley, very cheeky, very mischievous in terms of, the way that I like to work, the disruption element. It was, so Cheeky Monkey, there are lots of things there are lots of side stories, but I think on the public record, I just want to say that I just kept experimenting until the reaction was, no way. I think at PZ, actually, they said, we can't go to our board and say we partnered with Cheeky Monkey. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's it then. It's got to be that. Because also at that time, I knew I wanted it to be a filtering process, because I thought we would work for the most niche other companies who were trying to be disruptive in that time. I didn't think for 1 minute we would have the clients that we did, and Cheeky Monkey became quite street, I think.
Yeah, well, it certainly worked for you. Right, my next question is, okay, it's been a long 20 years, but if there has been one highlight in that 20 years so far, what was it?
What was it, or what is it?
The
fact that Cheeky Monkey still today, right at the beginning, when we were working up the designs with the foundry, Kevin and Ian also get a warm shout out from me. I was no one and just had these big ideas, and even companies that you needed to partner with to get things done weren't interested really. And Kevin and Ian at the foundry were amazing, and we did this whole animated thing, and a human approach to innovation and change was something that I knew was important 20 years ago, and it has remained the foundation of Cheeky Monkey for all of the 20 years, and is still as relevant, if not more relevant today. And I think I am very proud of that.
Yeah, it's a great tagline because it kind of does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? It's like you can have all this innovation going on and all the science and the technology behind it, but never losing sight of the fact that we're all humans, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
my thing was that, Cheeky Monkey was about the human element to this. Was then, is now, is the thing that I love, the thing that I believe in the most. And even though we've gone massively into technology and digital transformations over the years, I've always brought that human element to the work that we've done, and I am immensely proud of that.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about today's environment and the advent of AI. I think that's probably even more important, which kind of brings me to our next question, which is, what does the future hold for you and Cheeky Monkey?
Well, things have, over the 20 years, things have changed a lot, obviously, and not always because I've wanted them to change. The government hasn't really helped. It is very difficult to have a small business, and over 20 years you realise that legislation that the government brings in and things that they do, rules that they set, affect small businesses enormously. And you don't have the same bandwidth, resources. You don't have the same power. You don't have the same people who can find workarounds for the stupid, sometimes, rules that the government put before us. And so, now I work in so many different ways. And I'd say Cheeky Monkey had a solid 10 years of being able to work as a consultancy like it did. And then the second 10 years have been very different, where I've worked in lots of different ways, partnering with other organisations, which I love to do, even being recruited by other recruiters like it was in day one, taking contracts and things just so that I can do the same work, because that's how companies take people on now. The whole inside and outside IR35 thing just creates a nightmare for this kind of work. So I've learned to really go with the flow on this, and I'm super flexible. And I guess I am in a privileged position to be able to do that now. And I know lots of other companies starting like I did find it much harder. So for me, I can work in lots of flexible ways, and that does help. And over the last 5 years, AI has really come into our picture. I mean, we had that whole thing where Siemens were a huge help to us again when we got into the PLM space, the product lifecycle management space, and that led to other bigger digital transformation programs, digital change, which of course incorporated AI. And I think that is what I am most excited about now, because even my early work with AI was all about, well, where is the role of the human in this? And making sure that we're doing things that seriously does enhance the role of a human and doesn't just make us all into robots. For years, I had a humans versus robots thing, for those of you who have followed my work for a long time. Now I've moved, it's not humans versus robots, but it's more humans integrating into that digital space. I personally use AI all the time, and I can see the help and the advantages it brings. I also work with people on very diverse things, and I know it can help the diverse community enormously, and that is amazing. So there's so much we can do with it, and that is what I hope I will continue to work on for a bit longer. I want to be doing this, carving out that space where humans, AI, digital transformation, and cultivating proper craft and skill set into that, so that we remember there's a whole spectrum of stuff that has to come together here. That excites me enormously.
Absolutely, and well, I'm sure we'll dive a little deeper into that in future episodes of this season, the 20th anniversary of Cheeky Monkey season. So that brings me just to my final question today. If you could start over, is there anything you'd have done differently?
Honestly, I'm sure the answer to this question should be yes. But I know myself, and at the haphazard way that some things happened, I'm sure if you're one of the monkeys that worked in Cheeky Monkey over those 10 years where we did operate as a consultancy, then I'm sure you'll be screaming, going, "Oh my God, this, and then you could have done this, and you could have or not done that, or behaved in this way." It wasn't ever, we weren't ever standard. It wasn't ever polished. I made loads of mistakes with my own staff.
But you learn from all that, right?
Well, it's I think having staff is a massive learning curve for all businesses. I particularly had these really idealistic ideas of what it was going to be like and how my company was going to be so different. And I genuinely tried to incorporate all those things. And then real life comes in, and real scenarios, and other people's issues, and other people's mortgages, and all lots of stuff. And really, if I am truly honest, I wasn't committed to that side as much as I was committed to being on a client site and sorting out all the clients' problems and coming up with really creative ideas that would solve everything and more. That was where my heart was then, and it is where it still is today. So I'm sure, there's loads of things that I could do differently if I was going to do that again. But really, it adds to the whole learning curve that has been Cheeky Monkey Business Solutions. So if I'm really honest, I probably wouldn't have done anything differently.
Yeah, well, that's good. There's no big regrets then. And you've come a long way and made a good success of it. Well, that's all I wanted to ask you for today, and so thank you very much for this. And of course, as always, if you want to carry on this conversation, you can contact Nina directly at nina.dar@cheekymonkey.co. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.